Welcome to Lead Poison.
Welcome to another episode of the Lead Poison podcast, brought to you by youcanpaint.com.au. Please head to youcanpaint.com.au for issue 1 of their how-to series, How to Paint Your House and Save Thousands. My name is Jack, your host, and today on the show I'll be joined by Taven 210 RBS crew. Taven is arguably Australia's most notorious graffiti writer. His history within the culture dates back to the 1980s, when life in Sydney was very different from today. Anyone with an understanding of the roots of Sydney Graff will know who Taven is, but for those who don't, his style is iconic, raw and original. His methods are brazen, bold and fearless, all characteristics attributable to the man himself. Taven personifies what it means to be a graffiti writer, and I'm sure he would agree that lifestyle is not one without adversity. In order to become the man he is today requires a strength of character very few of us will achieve in our lifetime. To say it was an honour to speak with Tav would be an understatement. So without further delay, please welcome Taven. Taven from 210 crew and of course RBS. Thanks for joining me today, bro.
No problem.
I'm not sure your feelings on the pandemic and everything, but how's it looking in the city, bro, with COVID and everything? How's it sort of affected how you move around?
It's come through here pretty hard, actually. A few people I know have caught it and have been in hospital for a while. Couldn't breathe and all that shit. It's pretty nasty.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
I don't know anyone that's had COVID. So yeah, it's been weird, man, but that's not good to hear. How are they going at the moment? They're still in hospital?
Nah, like I knew 2 girls that had it. I know another boy had it too. But no, they were anyone who had a bit of weight issues or underlying sort of stuff was it really knocked around. And some of the kids, I know about 10, 15 people that have got it, and
sure.
And some of the kids were sweet, and some of the kids in the same family were on like ventilators and stuff.
Kids as well.
Lucky, kids, bro, and so lucky. We live in a good country that's fucking got a lot of ventilation. I didn't really the lock-in shit at the start, I was like, what are they doing? But the more I sort of got to know about it, the more I sort of changed my opinion to it. But, each their own with that shit.
Yeah, I guess once you know a bunch of people that get it, it hits home a little bit, eh?
It does, especially when you see how they will, how it come out in the first place by, starting to mess around with like bat DNA and all the shit and mixing human shit so humans can catch bat flus and shit. Like, what the fuck? But evil fuckers, but it is what it is.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it is a worry. It's strange times. I imagine the streets around there are pretty quiet, or is things getting back to sort of normal?
It's getting back to normal from today. Everyone's out, but for a while there it was just police in effect.
Yeah,
which is not unusual for this area. But
yeah, true. Yeah, that's true. So tell me, man, I mean, I'll sort of take you back a little bit. Where did you whereabouts are you from, and where did you grow up?
I'm a bit of a fucking gypsy, to tell the truth. I had a single mother, no dad, up until the age of 8. I just moved around everywhere. Mum got killed when I was a kid by she was killed by a drunk driver. When I was 8, never come home, went out one day, never come home. I just went to different relos until I ended up with my nan and pop around West Ryde area. But I've lived everywhere. I went to school I went to 12 different primary schools, so I would be here all day going on with school shit. But and free high school, so that's why I probably know everyone in Sydney from just living in pretty much every area.
Yeah, for sure, man. Yeah. Sorry to hear about your mum, man. That must have been pretty tough as a kid.
Yeah, it wasn't a good day, that was for sure. But done a lot of damage that day. Yeah, but that's life.
Where did you first come across graffiti? Was that in those early years when you were moving around a fair bit?
At one stage, when my mum died, I ended up with an uncle and auntie, and then I went from that uncle and auntie. I went to an auntie, then I went from an auntie to an uncle and auntie to another auntie. But so on my third auntie, I went to a primary school in North Sydney Demonstration School, and my uncle was he drove launches for the quarantine on the harbour, and we lived at the quarantine base at Waverton, but anyway, I had a paper run when I was a kid, and I used to do it in the buildings at North Sydney when I was about 10 or 11, and there was the old school there that had lots of graffiti in it, old North Sydney school. It's gone now, and I remember just going through there and seeing all the old pieces when I was a kid, and something about it I just loved, and you have to go there every day and just look at them and freak out how they done them and stuff, and had all Ninja Turtles. I didn't even know what Ninja Turtles were when I was that age, and pieces of them. I think it was Blaze and some older writers, but just grabbed me from there, and then I went to Crow's Nest Boys for year 7, and a few writers went there, Demote, and stuff. Yeah, and so he's like a year or two older than me, but I went from there to my nan's house from that auntie, and ended up living at West Ryde. So I ended up at another school, Carlingford High, for a year. Where another writer went at Teaser. Before this Teaser, there was another Teaser. So I started to know a few writers, and I got kicked out of that school and went to another school at West Ryde, where Metro went, and a few other West Ryde boys. So I met all them boys, and it just kicked off from there, where we used to wag school and just tag trains and shit.
Yeah. What years are we talking here? You know, when we in high school, we're talking the 90s?
No, we're talking the 80s. 86, 87. I started probably first tagging around 86, little toys, but probably got into it hard around probably 88, 90s.
And what was graffiti like back then? I mean, was it pretty prevalent? You said that you met quite a few, guys that were sort of tagging and things like that. Was there a lot of it, or was it sort of not much?
No, there was a lot of it. It was that's when it was really bombed. When that panels would run for a month and stuff. On all the rattlers. But it was good days back then, and all the old stations before the cameras and stuff. Even before they made them all see-through, before they made them see-through, like with all the perspex and stuff, they had them all, that was all sandstone block buildings, but they changed all that because there was a lot of blind spots, I suppose, people get involved in all that nasty stuff that goes along with that. But no, it was bombed pretty hard, Sydney, yeah.
Yeah, man. What was it like? I moved around a little bit when I was a kid, by the sounds of it, not as much as you, but it was kind of difficult for me going from school to school. What was it like going to so many different schools? For me, I had a lot of first days, and I had a lot of first, obviously when you're a kid, you sort of adapt and stuff. But I think as I get older, I sort of think how it affected me. It's a hard thing to do, moving around all the time. Do you ever look back and think that it was, tough for you to move around so much?
Yeah, it was tough when I think about it. Always getting into fights and being the new kid at school, and having to prove yourself again and again and again. But sort of makes it tough that when you can look back at it. But going through it wasn't too good, and so I know how that one is. It's like, and then even as you get older, it's like, and you end up in the jail system. It's the same shit. Like every new jail is like a new school, and you got to prove yourself again. But it's not a good thing to go through. But then it breeds character, so I don't know.
Yeah, it's one of those things it's hard. I mean, you look back and sometimes you think maybe it would have been better another way, but it builds character, as you said, and it kind of makes you the man you are today. So whether it's a good or bad thing, I don't know. I guess that's just life, really, eh?
Yeah, that is life, bro.
What kind of paint were you using back then? I mean, what was around? I got no idea.
Like, I was always little light fingered sort of cunt. I never had no money, never had like, I just my nan and pop had nothing. I just so it was just tuxins, I suppose, and touch ups were the main paint I used to like. So yeah, and you could get they used to have touch ups in like Target, so you just fill up a bag and just throw it out they'd let you walk indoors and then you couldn't get out of it. You just get someone to walk towards them. They'd open up, throw the bag out. We used to do that every day.
Yeah.
So, thanks to Target. I wish they still had them.
Yeah, for sure, man. Fucking hell. And, I think just like we were saying with sort of going through adversities when you're younger builds character, do you think that using paint that wasn't specifically made for graffiti benefited you in your pieces and things like that these days, when there's you can get fucking anything and everything from the graph store and online especially?
It's because I got into graffiti hard when I was young. I went from like 13 to about 19. By 19, one of the obviously heard of Potts, and he had died, and I was going through that, getting in jail age, and had court cases coming up as a adult, and I was like, fuck, I put so much effort into graffiti for what? Fucking, I chased the number of panels I wanted. I'd done the most when I'd stopped in Sydney anyway, and that's what I was trying to beat JC's record. And I know it probably means nothing now, but when I was a kid, that was what I was about. So the paint feature was just, you just took what you could get and used what you could get. But it was actually the new paint I had trouble with, because I was always in jail. I would only do 1 or 2 pieces every year and never really got back into it. So it's taken me actually a while to figure out all the new sort of paint. Because the old paint, I was just used to it, but sort of getting the hang of it now.
Yeah, for sure, man. Obviously, you've seen graffiti in Sydney move through decades, really. I mean, you've been involved, as you said, since the 80s, being a kid and growing up tagging and getting into panels and all the rest of it. What are some of the major changes that you think are different from back in the day until now? Is there anything that really stands out to you that is starkly different?
The main things that stands out to me is just how the security is just way more intense now. You get on the train, they're watching you on camera. You even fucking look the wrong way on a train and they're watching you from the control room. Like, they can follow you from almost to your doorstep now. Like, so I feel sorry for the kids now. So props to them for the ones that are doing panels. Like, Matt Cancel, you got 10 minutes in the yard. I used to have 8 hours. Like, and now I'm spilling. I didn't do another 100 more. Like, anyway. But so yeah, the kids these days. Yeah, props to them, man, because they're full on. But especially with how long you got to paint, like, that's just. But anyway, they'll never stop it, because you can't stop that sort of shit. But you can slow it down a bit, but it doesn't even look like it's slowing down. It's like I see lots of panels, man, when I get on trains, or just little panel here, little panel there. It's still bombed hard, and so props to the young fellas that are out there.
Yeah, you'll never it's a beast. You'll never stop graffiti. You'll never get rid of it. But obviously, do you think that has effect on sort of the quality of graffiti that is around? You got less time to do it, so people don't have enough time to rock burners as much as they would back in the day. Is that something that you notice? There's more quantity but less quality as the years go on?
No, I think it's getting better, if anything. Like, the kids are painting like big and bright, and Sydney was like because rattlers were like high up, especially single decker rattlers, you could only just reach, like, even with a milk crate, you could only just get to the bottom of the windows anyway, and they were always little panels. That was before my time. Like, I'd done them rattler panels too, but it was like the silver cars and the Tangaras always try to do bigger panels, but the kids they're still rocking mad in their ends and shit. So, like, yeah, so they're doing what they can do. I actually liked it. You know, it was a little bit like I was a bit Euro-y at the start, but the more I sort of paid attention to it, the more I was like, no, it's fucking dope what they're doing. So yeah, props to them.
Who are some of the guys that came before you? Can you tell me, who were you looking up to when you first got into it? You mentioned Demote before, but it sounds like, you said he's a couple of years older. Was there any people that were fully established when you got into it?
Obviously, like because I lived over at the North Shore too, like I said, like around St Leonard's and stuff, there was always Demote's pieces with Haro, and they were the two like best. Still, being the two best forever, and they were a big influence on me. And like because I went to West Ryde also from like the north side. Metro, who was good friends with Demote and Haro, they sort of showed him, and he showed me a little bit. I was always like a little earner, so I'd get the money, get the paint, but I didn't really know how to they just show me little things when you're a kid, and then just take it yourself from there. But shout out to them boys because they were Haro, especially Haro, like he's just on a another level. Prince, yeah.
Sydney itself, it's got a reputation, and it definitely did have a reputation for being a pretty dangerous place to be involved in graffiti. And I think there's like a code of conduct that existed in the past. And like I'm 30, I got involved in graph, probably 2006. So I wasn't there back in the day, obviously, but I'm interested in my history, and I always look recently, more so than other times. I've been looking back into it and trying to figure out where the scenes come from and what it was like, and it just really interests me. I'm really passionate about it. But I think that code of conduct that I just mentioned was more apparent back then than now. Even getting into the circle that would allow you to get to certain spots or to paint, and it was a bit more cutthroat than now. Would you agree with that?
I suppose just because, like you had to watch out at certain train stations, especially when you're younger. Like when you're like at 14, you got to watch out for boys at 18, right? Like, it's as you get older, it sort of like loses a bit of like how dangerous it was for me anyway. But when I was like, I remember like as a 14-year-old, like, you got to watch come through Redfern, 5 Redfern boys jump on the train, you like, got drama, you know what I mean? And, or you go through Burwood or Parramatta or wherever, Bankstown or wherever the stations were, you had to watch out for. So yeah, it was, Sydney's always sort of been like that anyway. It's a sort of rough place, I suppose. Australia's like that, I suppose. But yeah, I don't. I'm not too sure these days because I'm older and I'm a man. I don't really look out at a kid sort of like glasses. But I remember it was dangerous. It was dangerous feeling when I was 14-year-old. That's for sure.
Yeah, fucking oath, man. I can imagine. It's graffiti is a lot more accessible to a lot more people now. You got people getting involved in graffiti that, some of them might not even understand the history of the city that they're doing graffiti in, and whether that's a good or a bad thing, that's not up to me to decide. But I think it's important to sort of understand where it comes from and all the people that were involved, back in the day. Guys like Unique, obviously, and Score, Don't as well, Prinz, Gain 2, Fibs as well as a big guy that's, he's been around, and obviously he's doing his whole, he's got a successful art career out of it. What's your opinion on graffiti sort of in a commercial sense? Is that something that do you like looking at graffiti that is legal in a lot of ways and, things like that? Or does that sort of not sit right with the foundation of where it comes from?
No, when I was younger, I had that sort of attitude where everything was about bombing, but I suppose you sort of mellow a bit when you get older. But as long as you still do it, the track side or whatever you can do here and there, like you got to live too, don't you? So yeah, so no, it's all good in my books.
Yeah, true, man. I've seen you've been doing some canvases lately yourself, man. They look really cool. Do you enjoy doing stuff like that on canvas?
Yeah, I enjoy them. They've helped me out heaps. I was like I was saying, I was like bombing obviously when I was young, and then I got in a bit of trouble, kept going to jail. So I didn't paint obviously because but but I could get sketchbooks in there and pencils and that of the Koori boys, because back then only the Koori boys could get art shit. Now you can just buy it on the like buy up and stuff, right, on the activities buy up. But back in the day, like only Koori boys could get art stuff, and so like they'd get me sketchbooks, this and that, and I just would do heaps of sketches. So I sort of learned to draw in there. But I lost the can control because I was never painting. But so I'm starting to pick that up. But the canvases, the jail sort of helped me with painting the canvases, and so they've actually kept me out of jail. So yeah, they've been a godsend, which is weird because the thing I started when I was a kid was the thing that sort of helped me out in the end. So life's a trip like that too, where I was like trying to get away from it because it caused me a lot of pain by losing mates and stuff, falling out of trains and shit. I was like, fuck this. I put a lot of effort in for what, and now it's paying back, which is strange. Anyway.
Yeah, that is I guess, in a lot of ways life comes full circle, man, for a lot of us, eh?
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to ask you was about, your time being incarcerated and if art sort of exists in prison. We've got a mutual friend, Bill, who's he's a top bloke and he's helped me out a lot in the past couple of weeks. And he's seen sort of, he's told me sort of little stories about seeing tags in holding cells and things like that. And you've just told me that there's, you're sketching in jail and whatnot. So is there much art in jail? Is there a lot of people doing drawings like you were saying you're doing, or is it sort of uncommon to see that?
No, you get like writers that come through, every now and then, but you get like local boys always doing their paintings, and a lot of just art on the walls in general. Like people got no TV, they don't draw on the wall, and that. So like you actually see some pretty good art in the cells sometimes, which is pretty good. And the holding cells and trucks, they're bombed and tagged. Sydney's bombed. Like the jail system's bombed. The trucks are bombed. Trust me, like they're coming through reception, there's a texter there, it's getting lifted, and then it's getting on the truck. So it's pretty fun. Pretty funny.
Yeah. Like an oath, man. Well, I guess speaking of jail, man, and I don't want to, I want to make sure that I don't speak out of school, so to speak, and speak about things that I have no idea about. But I literally have no idea about jail, but it's something that interests me in regards to, I always wonder what it's like in there and what some of those guys are going through. And I have sympathy for people that end up incarcerated, because I know a lot of them, it's a result of sort of a situation that was out of their hands, and a lot of that, and a lot of children going through jail systems and in and out and whatnot. But I mean, what kind of experience has it been for you going into prison? Has it been sort of net positive? Has it been a negative experience? I imagine probably a bit of both, but can you tell me a little bit about what it sort of did to your mind and what it did to your outlook on life?
It's a hard one. Jail, when I was like in juveniles, when I was a kid, I was young and I was little, like as a 15-year-old, 6-year-old. I never got big till like 17. 18 sort of thing, and like I can remember like at Mount Penang having to fight bigger boys and older boys, and at Minden, like the screws would make you fight, or they would just, they're quick to make you fight in there, and then like and then before you know it, like they've taught you how to fight, right? And so, and then you start like getting into fights on the outside, and you get in front of the judges, and they want to throw the book at you, but it's their little system. It was that made you sort of aggressive. So it's a sort of catch-22, but jail's like been like a negative and a positive. It's been a positive, like it saves you from, destroying yourself if you're on drugs or whatever, and you get that time out to get back to reality. And but it also does damage because it's such an aggressive place that you're always on edge, and then you get out with that jail mentality, and then you know, there's certain rules in jail, and people don't follow them out here. It's easy to get into fights, and before you know it, you're back in front of the judges, and that just went on for fucking 20 years. Like it's a hard, like have you know, thing to break, and that's what it's designed to do. It's like, you know, you just got to keep somehow making your way through it until you get smart enough or something comes your way. With me, it was like a bit of art that sort of saved me. Otherwise, I'd be back in there today. So, and I can quite easily. I'm like always, every day I wake up, I'm like this could be the day I go back to jail. That's how stuffed up it is, like mentally, because it's once you got a history like mine, anything, and you're back in jail, no bail refuse. Takes a year to work out your case. Like, so you're sitting there for 12 months just to get out on a shitty charge, like anything. So, yeah,
man, it's difficult to hear because, you know, as I said before, I don't have any experience, but usually when people talk about jail or they think about jail, they talk about being in jail. But I imagine once you get out of jail, there's a whole new set of challenges that sort of come your way. And I guess just from my outsider's sort of perspective, I imagine that it's really easy to go back to jail because I imagine there's, you know, even dealing with government stuff to do with, you know, just work and things like that. They're always, you know, in your pocket. And I can't imagine what it's like once you've been to jail that, you know, even just a slight slip up will send you straight back there. And it must be really hard to deal with mentally and to keep on the right track.
That's for sure. Also, it's like designed to, like say in New South Wales, right, you go to jail, you can do a year, you can do 5 years, but you'll get out with half a check. So you got, what, $160, and then in a week they'll give you another 100. Like, you know, if you want a pair of shoes, you got no clothes, you've got all your clothes have been snaked or whatever, you haven't got, you know, a stable place to go to. Like, you're at day dot straight off the bat, and so like that's why we always say it's just designed to like keep you coming back and hold you down, because you know, I'm not going to get into too much about bagging and screws because if I start, I'll never stop. But they're like, you know, they got big unions and big power, and they're building jails like they're going out of fashion. And you got, you know, people going in there, can't read, do 5 years, get out, still can't read. It's just, you know, working slave labor in there. It's just a big just setup from the get go.
I mean, ultimately, what it should be is rehabilitation, but it's not by the sounds of it. You know, is there many programs inside jail to help young adults better their lives at transitioning to getting out of jail, or is it? It sounds like there's not a lot.
There's programs and stuff, but you've got to be like, you know, you've got to be a certain classification minimum, like a C3, C2, to get to the good places, to stay in there. Even to stay in there, if you've got problems with drugs, and like you're bored and you want to, you know, people use drugs in there. The places are full of drugs. They will charge you for using, say, you can smoke a bit of pot, take a sleeping pill, or use ice, and it's the same charge, same what's the word I'm looking for? It's like the same punishment for same level for whatever littlest drug to the highest drug. So they just punish you straight off the bat hard. There's no like rehabilitation, no help being there. They only want to give you programs once you're coming up to parole, because once you come up to parole, you're to do programs in jail, they get twice the amount for a bum on a bed at night, so for a placement in a cell when you're doing programs, than they do for a normal bed placement. So once you get into your parole period, then they just knock you back on parole because you're worth more money to them. Fuck what your family's going through and all that. Like, they don't give a shit. It's all nasty. Unless you're like a, you know, privileged or you got money and you come from something else and you can fully like kiss ass for your whole lag, and then that's a different story. But if you just like come from the hood, riff raff, rah, you're just behind the 8 ball from the get go, you know. Melbourne's a bit different. I've done that jail system too, and they put a bit of money away from you out of every money you get, and so you get out to you've got a little bit of money, which they should do in New South Wales, but here they just throw as fuck. They don't care.
Yeah, it's disgusting to think that, you know, it's such a horrible thought to think that some of these guys going into these systems, I mean, it sounds like yourself included, they just go in young, and, you know, a lot of the times they're going in for reasons that you know, they find themselves in. They just find themselves there, and they're not really getting the assistance they need to transition into any form of a good life. And from what I've heard, it's, you know, it's easy just to continue in that cycle, man. But it sounds like that art and graffiti sort of had played a role in you and your life. You know, obviously, you know, you're one of the most respected writers in Sydney. And it sounds like, you know, graffiti was there for you sort of when you were in and out. But were you coming out and were you keen to paint when you were back in Sydney, and were you sort of keen to get back out there and do your thing?
Like I went through a stage where like around 94 I stopped, done my last end to end wave, and then that was it. I had all these court cases, and I just started going through the jail system, and then I just never done graph for 10 years straight. I'd tag every now and then, and obviously bombed in jail, but I'd never like posted or done anything outside. And then done a couple here and there after the 10-year mark, and then slowly started like getting back into it, but kept going back in and out and stuff like that. So it was it's been like just like, you know, like I'm old now, and it's like I've been around for a long time, and it's taken me up until now like to really like think like to get my like, you know, to sort of snap out of it. And so they get their tentacles into you. It is a hard thing. Saying that, it's all on you too. You know, I probably went left where I should have gone right 100 million times. So you know, I you know, I could have done a lot better personally too.
Yeah. I mean, that's very true. But when you look at yourself, you know, and having your mother passed, and, you know, everyone goes through shit in their life, and sometimes it's hard to fucking just pull your bootstraps up and fucking get shit done properly, you know what I mean? So it's a difficult thing, man. But do you see a lot of guys, you know, even maybe today or maybe in previous years? I mean, is this shit still happening? Are kids still going through this sort of same situation where they're getting incarcerated and they don't really have many options? And, you know, especially from the areas where you're from, I know it's there's still a lot of young people that are growing up in that sort of life. Is that something you notice?
Yeah, hard. That's just the way it's always going to be, I suppose. And you know, and you get them in there bashing kids and like, you know, choking kids out and killing them and stuff. They're just nasty, the squad in there. And you know, say you're spitting because they broke your nose and you're dripping blood, and stop resisting when you've got your arms around it. Just a nasty system altogether. And you know, but I will say, and like, this ain't sticking up for him, but it is getting better from what I can see from when I was a kid to now. It's more programs, a little bit easier, but it's still building jails like they're going out of fashion, and that's just there. And once they start privatising shit, like, you know, it's about money, then it's shut the gate, because it's not like it, you know, the private jails are way worse than the government ones, that's for sure. And so when it's all about a board and making money, then you know, they've got a little thing with the judges, and they're just gonna keep locking kids up, especially poor kids, Koori kids that have got, you know, broken homes and have got no hope. Like, what are you going you know, it's just nasty. They should do better. They can do better.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I guess it's like, as you said, it's all about money at the end of the day for those organizations and the privatization and things like that. And it's really sad to see such a high rate of Indigenous, you know, First Nations boys and girls incarcerated, man. It's, when you look at the numbers, and it's fucking disgusting. And then you look at the communities that they're coming from, and you see that there's just not many options for these kids, and it's almost just delivered to them, and it's a horrible thing. But as you said, there's changes happening, and that's good to see, man. There's a lot of community work and people out there doing things for those people. So, you know, sometimes I wish I could do more, you know, in my own way, and I think everyone should sort of think like that too. But yeah.
A lot of crews around here are like getting it to like having a big time now and getting in and then like doing things for the community on a big positive level. And I'm talking about people that have been to jail and know firsthand. So that's beautiful to see. And so there's a big change in there. So we'll be, hopefully in years to come, it just gets so much better.
Yeah, for sure, man. Fucking oath. Yeah, amen to that. sort of taking it back to graffiti, man. You know, you're a member of 210 crew and obviously RBS, the Rebels. They're both really, very well respected and well known crews. Are sort of synonymous with Sydney graffiti. Can you tell me first of all where RBS started and who were some of the original members?
Yeah, RBS was started at Ashfield. I think it was Spies and Switch and a few of the boys there. I started like hanging at Ashfield with all them boys and bombing because it was a very like it was just a good place to be back in the day. The trains would pull up there, boys would run and jump the wall and do jump downs all day, every day. It was crazy when I think about it now, but yeah, and RBS was just sort of kicked off from there. But RBS, yeah, and 210, same sort of shit, just same sort of boys, just more the searching side of things. Obviously, it's a till key, number on a till key, and just it's sort of just a little branch of RBS, I suppose you could call it that.
Yeah, true, man. And was is HR, and you'll have to excuse me because I'm not fully aware, but is HR sort of another branch of that as well?
HR's was one of the other boys that I grew up with around Glebe. Sowens, he started HR. There's some other younger boys like Enter, a few other boys, younger boys, Schemo. They're all related. They're all sort of family. We go back a long way. That's like just another little off branch, I suppose, of the other crews.
Are those guys, 210 and RBS, are a lot of those guys still active? Are they still producing art and doing graffiti? Do you still stay in touch with them?
Yeah, I still see a lot of the boys. Not so much for bombing. I've always sort of been a bit of a loner when it comes to that. I always go by myself. But yeah, like Fibs especially, like, Fibs, how good's Fibs, like he's he's everywhere and he's a great writer. And so much respect to him. And so and same as Don't, he's been around forever. Ashfield boys, fucking Score, all them riders gain. So just all just doing their thing, bro.
Was there a period in Sydney graffiti that stands out to you that was sort of the highlight or the golden years of graph? Was it the 90s or the 80s sort of stand out to you, or maybe the early 2000s? I know when the Olympics came to Sydney, it was, some people say it was a great thing for graffiti in terms of security. Other people I've heard say that it was pretty hardcore. Is there any period of time that sort of stands out to you?
The period of time that stands out to me, even though I'm old now, I was sort of young back then. I always was around older boys. When I was, when I was 13, 14, I was like, the boys were 16, 15, whatever, it's a couple of years difference. But the main time that it stands out to me was a few riders, was mostly JC and Big Shot, MTV. They were just bombing everywhere. I had every front runner in Sydney on every train. So that was like a big inspiration for me to like bomb hard like that.
When were they around?
That was around the late 80s, mid 80s to late 80s, and then the 90s it sort of died down a little bit. Once we got the Olympics, they just once they knew Sydney was getting the Olympics, they cleaned the whole main line. Before that, the main line had always had its history and all them mad old pieces you see. That was like pieces over pieces, and then once the Olympics come, they just used all that red rattler paint they had in the shed and just painted the line, and it's just been that way ever since, where they just keep buffing, like, just all right, enough now, like the Olympics is done, like you just just let it go now, and you might get some mad art and have people coming from overseas, like they just don't understand, like where Melbourne's more like relaxed and cool, and like the pieces are up there for ages. Sydney just keeps getting cleaned up, and they'll never win against Sydney siders because we'll just keep bombing. But anyway, they want to keep wasting their money and cleaning the walls. Good for us to paint anyway. So
yeah, true, man, true. Did they So you're saying they used to paint the rattlers, like they actually paint the trains, buff
Now
them?
that same red rattler paint is, you see the brown on the walls. It's not far off the red rattler paint. That's just government stores, and they'd have shitloads of that paint. They just use it, put a bit of black in it, make it brown, and just it just changes shades, but it's the same red rattler paint. You can see it that they've always just cleaned the lines with.
Yeah, man, true. Is it I mean, how are your options for doing walls and tracksides, you know, or for a Sydney graffiti writer these days? I mean, is there a lot of options? Is there many places to go, or is it? I mean, I'm assuming back in the day there was a lot of options, but these days it's kind of a police state in Sydney.
Yeah, it's still shit easy, really. It's just got to get out there and have a go. But yeah, it's just the main line's always been easy because, to tell the truth, it's hard. Once you're on there, like, what are they really going to do? Like, it's not easy to get on there. So but you know them little spots to get on, and then you're sort of pretty safe on the main line. Where I always felt like out on the like suburban lines where it's dark and quiet, and there's someone walking their dog, and they come over a bridge, and you're there, and they can smell the paint. Next minute, you got a perimeter of gungy coppers around you, and like, you know, you're getting tracked. But like, at least on the main line, like, you know, there's a million different ways to cut. And anyway, but it's still easier to paint. Yeah, it's always been easy.
Yeah, I had a friend of mine painting recently in a drain, and the fucking cops rocked up and they couldn't figure out how to get in the drain, and they were asking him, how do I get down there into the drain? He's I'm not fucking telling you, cunt. He just hit the legs. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, man.
But what, speaking of style, like, how did you know, your style is sort of quintessential Sydney style, but it's not sort of what you would call Sydney style now. It's like original, hardcore, fucking dope letter form graffiti. It's really impressive, you know, the style that you've developed over the years. Have you put much thought into sort of your letters and everything like that? Did it come naturally, or is it something that you look to other people for inspiration?
No, I'm not naturally like talented. I'm just hard work sort of writer where just a shitload of them sort of got better at it, right? Where some people are just like gifted. I will say, but going to Melbourne had you know, Sydney tags, and like, no diss to Sydney, were always a little bit rounded to me, and like printing style, where I liked the way Melbourne was sharp and flicked the tags off, and also their pieces too. And so going down there and on a couple of little trips when I was younger, and seeing all their graph had a big influence on me. And so I sort of like, I think my style is like a little bit of in between Sydney and Melbourne, you know, if like old school Sydney and Melbourne, you know.
Yeah, well, that's what I meant before. Yeah, for sure, man. Like, when you say Sydney style, often people think about sort of just classic, like a stamp sort of style, but you definitely incorporate, you know, curved lines and flick offs and things that you don't see a lot in Sydney style, quote unquote, these days. But yeah, it's really impressive, man. Obviously, your color choice is amazing too. I think that's something that people don't really put a lot of thought into, you know. I guess with the lack of time these days, sometimes people just do what they can. But do you draw a lot at home? Do you sketch heaps, or is a lot of it you know, you said you sketched in jail a fair bit, but do you work on your pieces at home before you go out and things like that?
No, I just paint off the top of my head when I piece. I don't take outlines. I do sometimes if I want to like do a like I've been trying to put some like walls and trains and stuff in there, so I'll just sort of mark out where I want it to be, but I'll just do the piece off the top of my head and sort of just but I'll might put down like what colours I want to put here and there, just to save like fucking around once I'm there looking through shit and mark the cans out. But that's only come lately. Most of the time it was just off the top of my head sort of shit. So.
That's a good way to go, man, because it means that you're doing it enough to sort of get natural with it. And I find that when I'm painting and I just go with it, sort of getting into the zone and just having a bit of flow, you can produce something that you didn't expect. And sometimes it can be better than something being planned out and organized and all that type of thing. I sort of sound like a bit of a grommet because I am a bit of a grommet in terms of graffiti, but what was involved in and what was it like going to a yard back in the day? You know, you said that before you could spend 8 hours in a yard. Like what was one of those missions like? You know, Waverton, Punch Bowl Yard, Redfern Yard. I've heard stories about all these places.
Always found the layups were easy, like Waverton, Central, Lavender Bay, but the yards like Hornsby, Flemington, Punch Bowl, they were sometimes easy, but sometimes they were, because you like got cleaners there, train drivers, like you got more chance of running into people in them big yards, but they were pretty easy. You just had to watch the transits, you know, if you, on the weekend maybe they'll piss and that, they can catch you when they're drunk, but yeah, they'll, you know, compared to what the kids are going through now, like it was a walk in the park, sort of dirty on myself for not doing more. Yeah, you don't realise what you got until it's gone, you know. So I was saying.
That's a good mantra, man. I think that applies to a lot of things in life. But I mean, you certainly did enough to sort, you know, to leave a legacy, man. I mean, do you ever consider the legacy that you as a writer, you know, do you ever think about what Taven has done for the graffiti culture in Sydney, or is that something that you think about?
No, the thing I think about, I think I'm most known for is like tagging, like and like just trade bombing. Like, you know, I'm not the best at pieces, but I'm, you know, like I used to think I was pretty good at pro ups and hitting trains and rooftops and all that sort of stuff. You know, done a few of them. Like I bombed pretty hard when I was a kid, you know, because I was such a little ADHD shit and just always naughty and in the stump, and so it was always fun to me just the bombing part of it, which it still is, you know.
There's always that element of you know, the essence of graffiti is all that shit you're talking about, like just the adventure and everything like that, and that's what keeps people coming back. And it's a beautiful thing, man. It's sad to see that graffiti sometimes can be considered such a you know, a not necessary art form, but one thing I've been talking about lately, and one thing that I've been talking to sort of my peers about, is how important graffiti is and how people from the graffiti world can actually do really good in life, and they can have a great message, and they can be, you know, sometimes I think they're disregarded a little bit, but I think it's really important, man. You mentioned before, and I'm kind of hesitant in sort of bringing it up, but a lot of writers in the past have passed away, you know, doing graffiti, either in the act of graffiti or writers that have had issues with substance abuse or people that have gone down the wrong path. You've obviously known a lot of people, as you said before, you've been around and a lot of people know who you are. Have you dealt with a lot of sort of death in the graffiti scene?
Yeah, I had, like, obviously Potts was a big one when was younger, but I also lost a few other mates doing, like Knox. He got killed in a stolen car, and with a few there's a Fijian girls, bless them, and yeah. So it's actually RBS has been a bit of an unlucky crew. I sort of call it the curse crew, just through the amount of riders that have died in RBS, right? And that's it's a strange, but deaths, I don't know, it's all I want to say, used too much, but it's always like been around me since I was a kid. Yeah, it's a dangerous game, but obviously too, isn't it? You know, you're running across train tracks and hanging out of trains with poles, and, you know, you're asking for trouble, really.
Can you tell me about Potts, man? Because I've heard a lot about him, and you know, he's obviously was a big part of your life in the early years, and you know, I often see you talk about him every now and again. But what kind of guy was Potts, man? Like, what kind of dude was he?
Potts was just a, you know, just good, staunch young kid who was just, you know, loved his graph and bombing, and was just a mad tagger and a mad piecer, you know. Like, when I look back at shit from like we done as kids, I used to think I had him covered back then. And then the more I, like, you know, look at his stuff now, I'm thinking he was bending letters over, and my letters are straight up and down. And I'm like, you know, when he's starting to do that shit now, I'm thinking, fuck, he was way ahead of his time. But I suppose God knows, you know, when you're going to go and let you in on some shit early. But no, he was a good dude. I used to actually play like under eights rugby league with him when I was a kid from McMahon's Point, so we go like way back. But yeah, just a shitty day all around that day.
Were you with him? You know, were you around that day when he passed away?
He was. I was at actually this day I remember probably more stronger than any day ever. But I was at I'd been out. We'd all been out partying in the city, and we were supposed to meet the next day, and I was at our time at Haro's mum's house, and I'm waiting for him to come. He doesn't show up, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to go into George Street where the games were, Orbit it used to be, and see if he's in there. And so I catch a train from our time and into there. Little did I know that I've just gone past him. He's in the tunnel, right? Like falling out, smashed his head, doing a hangout in the tunnel at Wynyard. I've just come through there in the train. He's in the tunnel, and like I don't know this, but like, so he's not there in the city. And then Graffiti task force drive past, and like we're just around like 18-year-olds, and we'd had a few run-ins with these same transits, and like we got into a big fight with them one night, and so they knew not to sort of like mess around with us too much at that stage, right? And so when they'd see us, it was like they didn't give a shit anymore. They used to when we were younger, but not when we got around 18 and when we get big enough to punch back, they don't, you know what I mean? They started easing up, and they drove past me in the city, and I seen them drive past, and then they must have seen me too, and then they come back, and then they pull up, and they got me in the lane at George Street, and they're going, where you been today? And I'm thinking, like, what have I done? You know, well, I've never seen them though, real serious. Like, I'd never seen them like this, right? I knew something was up just by the way the attitude. It was different. I didn't know they just come from the morgue identifying pots, right? And so I'm in the laneway in the city, and they're saying, and I'm thinking, oh, what have I done today? And I said, no, nothing. I haven't done nothing. I've been at our terminal all day, and they're like, you want to know who fell out of train? And I'm like, who fell out of train? And then they pull out a mugshot of Potts, right? And so I laughed, right? Because I think he's just falling out of train. What a dumb cunt, right? Sort of thing. But when I laughed, I looked at him and I could see the look on his face. And so straight away I jerried on. I said, what, he's dead? And they said, yeah, he's dead. I said, bullshit. And they said, no, he's dead. We're on our way to his mother's house now. Anyway, I hope his mother doesn't hear this fucking story. But anyway, and so, yeah, and I was just like a bit in shock after that. I was like, you know, and then that night it was just everyone met up, and it was fucking just terrible fucking time, to tell the truth. But then we just bombed the shit out of Sydney for him for like 3 months after that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's tough to hear, man. What I'm not sure if you mentioned it, but what time period are we talking here? When did he pass away?
92.
92.
Yeah, 92. So midway through the year.
How old would have he been?
He was 18.
He was 18.
He actually died. He actually fell out the train in the same place Nipser got killed, in the tunnel, Wynyard. So Nipser was KOA rider in Metro's crew. Him and his little brother Kenji. Yeah, he fell out there and died. I also heard another story of Leo got killed on the main line. It fell out of the train and got hit by another train. It hit his head in that same spot, but got smacked back in the train and survived. So yeah, it's a bit of a dangerous spot there. It's like a dead man's arm hangs off the wall and it kinks, and if you're right-handed and not a southpaw and you're hanging out back with your back to the train, it's just a dangerous spot, and it sort of leans up against the wall, and yeah, just nasty.
Yeah, man, that's yeah, it's fucking, it's tough to hear, man. You know, it's always just a massive shame when anyone dies, obviously, but especially young people that are passionate and young people that are doing graffiti and are just, you know, expressing themselves, and they get fucking swept up in this, you know, just a moment, and it changes a lot of people's lives forever. I imagine it's it's had a big role in your life, you know, him passing away. And I imagine, you know, you think about it all the time.
Yeah, I do.
Mm.
Mm.
Am I correct in saying you've got children? You've got 2 kids or 1 kid?
No, I got 3 kids. Yeah,
That's 3 kids. Yeah,
Yeah.
man. Nice. And how's the pandemic been treating them? Have they been doing homeschooling?
Yeah, homeschooling, doing my head in.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Me
I'm
too,
on
bro.
yeah, I was like, when am I going to get this school teacher paid? Yeah.
Yeah, man. It's yeah, it's crazy, you know. It's interesting because, you know, once I had kids, I've got 2 kids. I got a girl and a boy, and same thing here. We've been doing homeschooling and doing my head in as well, and especially doing the missus head in. And you know, but I often, once I had kids, I looked back on my life a lot, you know, and I consider, you know, before I had kids, I was kind of just knockabout a little bit and, you know, into the drugs and a little bit of that and a lot of drinking and, you know, just classic sort of fucking Australian kid doing graffiti and things like that. But did it change your life having kids? I mean, how old are they? Did that period of time sort of affect you at all?
I'm going to sound like the world's worst dad, but every one of my kids, I was in fucking jail when they were born. So at least I never had no favourites. I kept it, I kept it real on all of them. I never ended that one, but yeah, no, I wasn't. Yeah, no, I wasn't like the world's best dad. I've been there for him. Don't get me wrong like that, but you know, I'm getting better. Put it that way. I was just a little bit rowdy and loose, but but now they do have that. I suppose you just get old and you mellow a bit, but
Well, look, man, you've been through a lot in your life, and I totally understand. You know, one thing about having kids for me, I thought when I had kids, I was like, all right, I'm going to have kids, and I'm going to sort all my shit out. And then I had kids, and I didn't sort any of my shit out. You know what I mean? It's, as you were saying before, with people that are incarcerated, like it a lot of it can be from an outside sort of influence, but a lot of it comes from inside as well. You know what I mean? So, you know, as I said before, you've dealt with a lot of adversities, man. So there's nothing to sort of be ashamed of in terms of having children, because ultimately having kids, even though it's a massive thing in your life, it's not going to change years and years of different things and affect affect your life in a way that some people think it might will. And you can only really understand that when you have kids. But, you know, I imagine I've seen sort of on your Instagram that you have a relationship with your son. Do you consider sort of the messages that you pass down to him when you do have interaction with him? Do you think about what kind of things you're trying to teach him?
yeah, I tried to just. I was like, I don't want to get too deep into this, but when I was, of course, I never had a mum or dad. I was always sort of run down and that when I was a kid, and that had a negative effect on me. And to like, you know, you believe the bullshit sometimes. And then it wasn't until I got older that I thought, nah, they're just sweet fucking dogs or them cunts in my family. And like, so I've always built my kids up and said, you know, you can do this and that. But, you know, and I've actually taught them a lot of stuff, you know. I don't know too much, but I know a few things in life to help them. And so I've spent lots of times, put big work in with them.
It seems like you got some pretty good boxing training skills. It's good to see, man. Something I think a lot of kids can benefit from for a lot of reasons too, you know, protecting themselves and being fit and, you know, dealing with people that are trying to pick on you and things like that. It's something I'm looking into getting my kids involved in too.
Yeah, it's good for their confidence too, because you know what it's like. It's a nasty world.
Yeah, 100%, man. Fucking oath. Just taking it back to graffiti a little bit, you know, for yourself and other people that sort of grew up around you, do you think graffiti has a positive influence in your life, or is it more of an introduction into sort of the underbelly, so to speak, and might lead to other forms of behavior? Or do you think art can play a role in young people's life that is positive?
Oh, for sure. Graffiti is full of positivity, especially like, you know, socially. You can, you know, you find mates that are lifelong friends, and that's beautiful. But also Sydney's very villainous, right? It's still, you know, a colony and you know, jail colonies. So, so we've also got that history. So it just depends what side of the tracks you really want to go down yourself. So you can go down that graffiti side of the street and just stick a graffiti, or you can go out there and rack and steal and rob with other riders. It just depends on like what you really want to do and what how much, everyone's got their own little thing. But no, I think it's very positive. It's been positive to me. It's really now saved my life now. So it's beautiful. I love it.
In terms of letter-based graffiti and style, if you can tell me, what do you think makes a good piece? Like what is the difference between someone that's a fucking toy, other than the fact that they've just started, to someone that's established and pulling off a really good wall? Like, what is it about letters and color choice and things like that? Is there anything that you can say that is the reason behind someone can produce some good work?
I'm got that old school sort of New York style of lettering, right? The traditional sort of letter that, was New York. Sydney style is really like a version of a New York style, but it's like it all is. But me, it's just more about if you can be a bit more original and not all look the same. And that's what I see. A lot of the young writers now are like, it's a lot of original stuff. And that's, when I was a kid, I tried to do different style all the time until I sort of found my sort of like, style I got now. But it's just, just as long as they're just doing their thing, and putting in a bit of a big effort, then, props to them, bro.
I was looking at a photo earlier today of Hype magazine. I was speaking to Bill recently, and he was telling me about Hype magazine, obviously, and I've spoken to him on the show before. And on issue 25, you're on the cover, hanging off the side of a tank or the front of a Tangara with a panel on the front there. Do you remember Hype magazine and seeing those issues sort of floating around Sydney and around the world? Because it had a sort of a massive influence in Australia, but also across the world. Did you pick up a couple of issues, and do you remember reading that magazine?
Yeah, for sure. I'll just tell a quick little story. Like with Hype, like Vapors was out first, right? Like the Vapor magazine. But I was a little bit young to have I had maybe a little shitty panel in the last one, but I was a little bit young, and then Hype come, and then I was like doing a lot of shit here, like a lot of bombing, a lot of panels, and I was sending stuff up to them guys, and like every time the issue would come out, there was none of my stuff was in there, and I'm like, fuck, wonder why I'm never getting that. I just got to tell this story anyway, and like and I'm like fuck, they're not putting none of my things. I'm like fucking pretty much up the most here, and I'm like, wonder why they're not putting my thing in it. So another writer, Bosty from me, was like, no, fuck this. Let's jump on a fucking plane and head up to Brisbane. I was always thieving and searching around. So we jump on a plane and we fly up to Brisbane, and we walk into the boys' shop they got at Brisbane, the Hype Boys. And we're like, on such and such, rah, 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 introduce ourselves, not putting none of our things. And then I'm not going to say no names right now, right? Because, it's a long time ago, but a certain writer, it was a little bit, didn't want me to be known. We're sending all the dead trains from Redfern up there, like pictures of them saying they're runners, and they're putting all these panels in, all the hypes, and I'm thinking, I'm doing all runners. So when I get up there, I say, look, what? And he goes, oh no, such and such told us not to put your thing in there. All right. So anyway, we worked it all out, and they took me to their house, and then ever since then I've been mates with like Broken Seas, and then thereafter that I kept sending photos, and I put all the panels in and stuff. And then one day I just I done that Tangara and I waved it, and I had the keys. I had the keys for the trains back then, and I took them photos.
For the actual train or for the yards?
No, for the trains. There was another rider. He was I'm getting into this too much. Everyone knows this anyway, so it's not letting the cat out of the bag. But there was a worker. He used to tag travel, but he used to like give out fucking keys and that if you could get him on a good day. He was all right with me, but so and anyway, I just remember walking into not Disco City, Central Station Records, and like seeing that cover. So that was a highlight. So yeah, always like that film.
What motivates you to keep doing graffiti? Like, obviously the days of getting up and making a name for yourself, like you've done that. You've cemented a legacy that will be, in my opinion, and in a lot of people's opinion, forever penned in the history of Sydney graffiti. Like, you're a really important figure. And I know, I don't know if you think so or not, and I know you're a pretty humble guy by the sounds of it. But what motivates you to keep sort of doing pieces and things like that? What do you love about it?
I just love painting on train tracks for some reason. Always have. Just this, it's like a art gallery going past. I remember just being a kid and looking at the pieces and sort of put myself in a kid's position sometimes and think like, what would this look like? I don't really care about adults. I more think of like a kid would look at this and think, oh, that looks, the first times I ever painted, and I remember like painting in school once when I was a little kid, and I remember going back in the morning and seeing the first school kids run into the school and seeing it, and it had a big like effect on me, and just seeing how kids react to graffiti is just a really beautiful thing. That's how you know at its most basic level, it's mad, because when kids love shit, you see adults and they always, oh, I don't like the tag and I like these pencils, and they listen to any street artist or whatever, but it's not really my thing. And but I can tell when a kid looks at a proper piece, like they like it and say, that just means a lot to me. And so I just like, I just like painting on train tracks, and I would paint trains, but all my yards are gone and I don't know where the fuck to go now. So, Central's gone, Waverton's gone. Well, Waverton's there, but there's a second sitting in a tunnel all day. I snuck in there, you little doggy. Anyway, I just think I brought a little bit of wildness to it, where I don't want to get into like violence or anything, but it was like a little bit of people used to like hide their heads and be a little bit timid, and that when we come through it was just like we didn't care, and it was so not just that, just like bringing a bit of like rawness to it, and also villainous, but just to go out, just to be remembered to like that I was a proper bomber. You know what I mean?
What's on the cards for you over the next couple of years, man? Have you got plans? Are you going to continue to do your campuses? What are you planning on doing?
I don't like to plan and stuff too much, because every time I do, life's got a funny way of just making me look like a dickhead, and I'm getting it wrong. But I'll just take one day at a time, and just trying to be positive and stay healthy and on the level. Just be here for my kids, I suppose, and just trying to get some good energy back from in order, bad karma I'll give out from all that thievery, which is weird, but it's the way it is, man. And you gotta get some good energy in the bank.
Have you got any shout outs, man? Is there anyone that might listen to this that you want to say good day to, or anyone that you sort of respect, or any of your inspirations?
I just want to, I'll give a shout out to Exit. Just watching him paint the other day when he comes to my place was, it's helped me with a way I use a can, because I had that more traditional sort of Sydney style. But his sketches with the can, it was a trip to watch. He's a freaky cunt. So much love to him. And all the writers, all the old school writers, I love you all, and just Gain, love you, bro. And I want to get out there with you and paint again, bro. So let's go do it. Yeah.
Well, listen, Tav, as I said before, the chance to speak with you one-on-one, and I don't want to hold you up too long, so I'll let you go, man. But it's a fucking huge honor for me, man. And really, I've got no reason to get the opportunity to speak to you other than you being a good bloke and you sort of just your good grace. And for that, I'm really grateful, man. So I've got so much respect for you, brother, and I wish you and your family all the best, man. And I can't thank you enough for your time.
No worries. Can I just say to the young writers, don't ever let the ungies get your phones, boys. Don't ever let the ungies get your phones, boys. Don't ever let the ungies get your phones, boys. Don't ever let the ungies...
Thank you for listening to the Lead Poison Podcast.
future.
Huh?